Chelsea have won the FIFA Club World Cup after dismantling the best team in Europe, PSG, by 3-0, and in this video we're going to be breaking down how they did it. We're going to be taking a look at the tactics that Enzo Maresca used to not only nullify PSG, but also exploit their tactical composition and ultimately become world champions. After the game, Enzo Maresca said that Chelsea won the game within the first 10 minutes, and he's not wrong. The way that Chelsea were able to inject an element of pace and aggression as well as their unique tactical approach to this match set a precedent for what we would see for the following 80 minutes. So what did they do so well? Taking an example of the way that PSG would want to set up and the way that they would want to progress forwards, you had Hakimi occupying a really high wide area. This gave them a back three and allowed Vitinha to start to pick up the ball and start to progress it forwards. But what Chelsea did so well was prevent the rotation of certain players in and around those attacking areas, and I'm speaking about the individual battles and duels between Malo Gusto and Kvaratskhelia, Cucurella and Doué, and Pedro Neto along with Hakimi. In limiting the progression through these three players, PSG struggled to really maintain any kind of attacking foothold, even though they had the most of the possession. This was then all calmly brought together by an incredible amount of aggression from both Chelsea centre-backs, whether it be Colwill or Chalobah pinning themselves onto either a PSG midfielder or onto Ousmane Dembélé. It prevented the rotation of these players to then start to stifle Chelsea's defensive build-up, and what you ended up having was PSG failing to really play through that Chelsea back line, and in the end what it also did was free up the ability for Caicedo and Reece James to move forwards and control the centre of that pitch. It gave them the license to then move forwards and really maintain a dominating control of that central area even without the ball. Chelsea had no problem with occupying this central area as long as they forced PSG out wide, because they don't want to be penetrated centrally. And when you think about the way that PSG want to go forwards, the rotation within the centre of the park, it really did start to stifle the way that PSG wanted to go forwards. This gave Chelsea a really good option to operate something of a man-marking system, especially in that first half. You've got Caicedo onto João Neves, you've got Enzo Fernandez onto Vitinha, and then you've got Reece James almost as a free player because of the wide runs of Fabian Ruiz, able to just stop those passing lanes in the centre of the park. It worked to perfection, and it prevented PSG from being able to make any kind of real momentum through the centre of this Chelsea back line. And in the end, what Chelsea were happy to do afterwards was then drop into a zonal formation and protect the space in the centre of the park. This gave PSG no end of problems, and it gave Chelsea the immediate foothold in the match that they required. And this is a really good example of what I'm talking about. PSG are on the ball currently, and Chelsea are looking to prevent them from progressing through the centre. And how are they doing that? You've got Reece James onto João Neves, and you've got Caicedo onto Vitinha. At the same time, you've also got Cucurella onto Doué, and you've got Pedro Neto onto Hakimi, one of the major outlets for PSG when going forwards. Hakimi likes to go really high and wide and then move a little bit more centrally to gain an extra central run, but Chelsea are doing a really good job of stopping this, and the reason they're able to do this is because of Chelsea's flexibility. When playing against a side like PSG, who likes to have rotation, likes to be really flexible with their positioning, to combat that you almost need to be just as flexible. So even with Kvaratskhelia moving centrally because Dembele is taking up a position on the flank, that means that Chalobah now has to occupy and mark Kvaratskhelia, and he does that pretty brilliantly here. So Kvaratskhelia drops to try and gain that numerical advantage, to try and gain that advantage in the centre of the park to allow PSG to progress, and look at what you've got here with Chalobah. He's really onto him, and that prevents that passing lane going into Kvaratskhelia, and it means that PSG then have to go wide, which is something that Chelsea are absolutely fine with. You have to be flexible, and Chelsea did a brilliant job of this throughout the match. It's all well and good being defensively resolute, but you also need to make sure that you're able to go forwards and create opportunities for your own side. And this is where Chelsea's tactical approach in terms of their offensive play comes in. And already we've seen a difference in the way they line up, namely Cole Palmer, that main man, being out on this right-hand side, and this is for a couple of reasons. The first one being is Pedro Neto's selfless roll onto Hakimi, preventing Hakimi from really getting any kind of foothold within the match. It's also to really help those central areas. Because Palmer isn't necessarily going to be wanting to drop back and marking continuously, you need to make sure that you've got a good trio in the centre of the park ready to make those pressing movements, but also prevent those passing lanes. And the third option, and possibly the most important one for Enzo Maresca and his side, is getting Cole Palmer the most amount of space possible, and they did that through this. When Chelsea went forwards, of course you'd still have that base midfield of Caicedo and Reece James. You'd have that back three with Cucurella, Colwill and Chalobah. But the way that Chelsea went forwards is utilising the width of Malo Gusto to allow for Cole Palmer to move centrally. Now this does one of two things. It keeps PSG honest in terms of those wide areas because of how aggressive Gusto is with his positioning, and it also means that Cole Palmer is then able to drift a little bit further in field, so still taking advantage of the fact that he's able to drift centrally, getting him closer to those major goal scoring situations. And it's facilitated by those really good aggressive runs that Gusto has. In having Palmer centrally, you've now got an option for that box midfield that we know Enzo Maresca really likes. He's got a good foothold within the match, but it also makes sure that Palmer has the ability to get into those major areas, those game-changing moments, and give himself the best possible opportunity to create something for his side. Chelsea's first goal is actually a really good example of the critical role that Malo Gusto played in this match. Positioning himself really high and wide once Chelsea were in possession not only prevents Chelsea from needing to continuously play out through that PSG press. You've got Dembele onto Sanchez here, you've got Kvaratskhelia onto Chalobah, and you've also got Vitinha pushing up onto Reece James. Not only does it prevent you from needing to play through that continuously, but it also really spreads this PSG back line. Notice this, you've got Gusto really high and wide, but look at the difference between Nuno Mendes and the centre-back, and all of a sudden what you've got is 1v1 opportunities continuously because of the way that PSG wanted to press forwards. And this is a really good example. Look how high and wide Gusto is, and look at how much space he's then offering for the rest of his Chelsea teammates. It's really good. And as this progresses forwards, of course you have that 1v1 duel. Gusto ends up becoming quite fortunate and then driving centrally. But again, what does this have a knock-on effect for? It has a knock-on effect for Palmer. Really good stuff, and it allows for Palmer to be a little bit more centrally. So as Gusto tries to take a shot, he then has the composure to really find an extra pass. He finds Palmer, who's a little bit more central. Again, we spoke about him wanting to be in those central areas to have the maximum effect on the game, and he does that pretty brilliantly here. Again, look at the fact that he's not really marked due to a really good heads-up pass from Gusto after having that shot, and Palmer manages to slot it into that bottom left-hand corner. It's a sensational finish and a goal that really does highlight not only the problems that PSG found with this Chelsea attack, but also the quality that Chelsea have to go forwards to exploit that PSG back line. Actually, when we think about exploiting PSG and really taking advantage of their attacking tendencies, Enzo Maresca did one better, because what he actually found was the way that Chelsea could really exploit PSG utilising their own attacking momentum. And what I mean by that is the way that PSG want to go forwards. Of course, we're all natural with seeing this now. We're all really comfortable with understanding the way that PSG go forwards, utilising Hakimi really high and wide, occasionally bringing him centrally, but also making sure that they have really good width, utilising Kvaratskhelia. But it's the role of Nuno Mendes that I think is really crucial, and it's something that I think had a major influence in positioning Cole Palmer out on that right-hand side. With the way that PSG tend to want to go forwards is utilising this midfield three, making sure that they have good dominance in the centre of the park, but then needing to have those overloads to not only prevent the opposition from understanding their own positioning, but also to be able to create major opportunities through those attacking forward-thinking runs. And what you ended up seeing quite a lot of the time was Nuno Mendes making a really good advancing run. To compensate for this and compensate for the lack of positioning that Nuno Mendes would have in that back line, what you'd have is Vitinha move into something of a hybrid left back. Of course, still positioning himself like a centre defensive midfielder, but making sure that he was able to occupy that channel and that lane. And this is where Chelsea's positioning of Cole Palmer is absolutely integral, because if the ball was ever to get turned over, what you've then got is 1v1 duels between Cole Palmer and Vitinha, a massive mismatch. And then when you're thinking talking about Parma driving forwards and Chelsea going forwards, you've now got the option for those attacking runs, for those attacking plays. And before you really realise it, you've got really dangerous situations for PSG. You've got good runs from Joao Pedro. You've got good runs centrally from Parma that's helped facilitated by Malagusto making those runs on the outside channel. And all of a sudden, PSG don't really know how to deal with this really good composition of Chelsea and the way that they wanted to really exploit that Nuno Mendes movement going forwards and that Vitinha positioning out on that left-hand side. But Chelsea did it brilliantly right here. And Chelsea's second goal, I think, is a really clear example of Enzo Maresca getting one over on Luis Enrique and really having a game plan to combat it that the PSG manager and the PSG side just weren't really ready for. And you can see PSG's game plan almost in effect in this very still. So you've got them really having a good amount of momentum out on these wings. And this is to really drag away the Chelsea players from the centre of the park, then giving themselves the opportunity for rotation to drop into the central area and then progress forwards. But what Chelsea do so well is have that almost hybrid man marking system, and you've got Colwill here onto Fabian Ruiz as he drops into that pocket, preventing him not only from turning but also from making anything of the amount of space in the centre of the park. Really good from Colwill, but again, it must have been highlighted by Enzo Maresca. The next thing we need to take stock of is the positioning of Nuno Mendes. Now, although it's not in the exact state that we highlighted in the clip earlier, it's still really high and really aggressive, and the knock-on effect for that is Vitinha almost in this hybrid left-back spot, trying to help progress the ball from that deeper role. And then you've got PSG looking to try and progress forwards, but they can't do because of the aggression of Colwill. That goes back round to Vitinha. So he's now looking for a pass, and it again forces them out wide. But while it forces them out wide, you've now got the option for Chelsea to reset and go again. Palmer leaves the station and then goes to try to press Ousmane Dembele. Reece James gets a good block on, and now you've got a transition. Now you've got a turnover, the ability for Chelsea to then go back the other way. And remember what we said about Vitinha taking up that deeper role, because once the ball gets turned over, you're now looking for those Chelsea players to pick their head up and find a teammate who should be running into space, and they do it pretty brilliantly. Levi Colwill finds himself in a central area. We know how good he is on the ball, and he finds a great pass over to Cole Palmer in acres of space. Again, because of the positioning of Nuno Mendes, Palmer drives at Vitinha. Again, a huge mismatch, but really good at exploiting that weakness of PSG, the way that they want to go forwards, exploiting that tactical approach. Palmer drives infield because of the great overlapping run of Malagusto, and in fact what you have even further is Palmer faking a pass over to Gusto, which gives him an extra second against Vitinha, who's not used to dealing with these 1v1 situations out wide. He drives infield, and that gives him a brilliant opportunity in acres of space within the context of this situation to then pick a pass, pick a moment, pick a shot, and then fire it into that bottom left-hand corner. Look at the amount of space that he's in when he actually takes the shot. It's brilliant from Chelsea. The driving infield run from Palmer, the defensive setup, the overlapping run, it's all pretty fantastic. And in the end, puts Chelsea 2-0 to the good. But the actual tactical work from Enzo Maresca against Luis Enrique is pretty flawless. And finally, guys, before we end, let's take a look at Chelsea's third goal, the goal that essentially sealed the match, a culmination of everything we've spoken about in this video, but also Chelsea even beating PSG at their own game, and I'll explain what I mean in just a second. You got Malagusto out on this far side, and PSG are looking to press. Remember, we're 2-0 down. He passes back to Chalobah, and you've got that good press from PSG. You've got Dembele onto Chalobah, you've got Fabian Ruiz onto Reece James, and you've got Joao Neves onto Caicedo. So preventing the build-up through the centre of the pitch. You've also got Kvaratskhelia onto Gusto. But what Chelsea do so well here, and what Palmer does so well, is drop into space. Look at the amount of space it is in, and you could really see this being Ousmane Dembele finding that space. He did a great job of that against Arsenal when PSG played them in the Champions League. And in this particular example, you've got Palmer dropping super well, and it really does give Nuno Mendes a massive problem because he can't go and press Palmer due to the positioning of Malagusto. Because Gusto is making a good forward run, it really does give Nuno Mendes food for thought. It makes him wonder whether he's going to pass it off, so he can't press. And then you've got the good runs from Joao Pedro out infield, and that brings away the centre-back. You've got Nuno Mendes not able to really go and press Palmer again because of the good movement from Gusto, and all of the off-the-ball runs are all there to help facilitate Palmer carrying the ball forwards and taking that space. And the moment that he gets towards that final third, it's then about the little movements that you have in beyond. How can you create some space for yourself? And in João Pedro's case, he does a great job of just bending that run. Of course, he's being played onside by Marquinhos, and Palmer finds a brilliant pass into his strike partner. It's a brilliant pass. It's a sensational finish, an emphatic finish that puts Chelsea 3-0 up. And of course, we know what happens after that. They go on to win the Club World Cup. It was a sensational game by Chelsea. It was a brilliant tactical display by Enzo Maresca. Again, like I said, really outthinking and outdoing Luis Enrique in this particular example. But of course, guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. What did you make of the game? How happy are you if you're a Chelsea fan that you've won the Club World Cup and you can call yourself world champions? Let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care.